Welcome to Synchronicity. We got a good episode this week. I'm doing it. I just say we have a good episode. I literally am about to record it live. How do I know? How do I know? It could be horrible. I've said this many times. It was just a dud. We just totally fucked up this one. Just flailing all around. Would that even be fucking up? I don't know. What's fucking up anymore? Hey guys, how you doing? How's reality going for you? Are you still in a Bardo state of uncertainty and not really sure what the fuck is going on? That's cool. Maybe you have an inkling that you do know what's going on and that maybe there's some connection between the inside of you and the outside of you and what the fuck is going on there. It's cool. It's cool. Just relax. We're here to have a good time. That's what we're supposed to be doing. You wouldn't have incarnated at a time and place, at a perceived time and place, unless you wanted to actually hear this. That's the beauty of where we are now. Can you imagine like having to be someone like William Blake in like the 1800s and he's like, I fucking understand imagination creates reality, but all my friends are morons. They don't know what's going on, but I gotta make all this art and make these drawings and these weird plates and poetry and talk about this shit and weird codes that people will understand later, but not really in his lifetime. That sounds bad. I'm sorry. It's not. It's cool. It's actually a real testament to his courage and determination and conviction that is how reality works. We're these days, you can kind of just be a little more. You're like, oh, I think it works like this. This is how it works. Let me test it out. We just have access to everything is what I'm saying. It's cool. We did a good job. We did a really good job incarnating right now, right here, doing what we're supposed to be doing. Now let's talk about all the shit that feels like we're not supposed to be doing. Why is this happening? Why does this keep happening? I don't want that. I'm doing this. I'm ready to be done with that, but it keeps coming up. What's that about? That's also you. And you're showing yourself stuff right now probably that you really want to deal with. Here's the good deal. If deal with sounds like you got to do a lot of it's gonna be shitty and it's gonna be hard. Guess what? It will most necessarily be when you go through it. But if you're like, you know what, that's pretty cool. That's some we're all gonna die physically, right? Instead of approaching death like, what the fuck? You just be like, oh, that's what a fucking threshold to cross. Crossing thresholds. Crossing. No, I can't say it right. Jesus Christ. Crossing thresholds. That's a cool thing. You don't have to like delusionally say, I'm not afraid of dying. I think there's this big aspect of acknowledgement that precedes allowing, which precedes surrendering, which is nice. That's a thing that like, it's a good energy to be able to surrender to something, especially if that's like grace and abundance. Anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk about this week. We're going to get to it all. Big shout out to Lacey Free. I was just on her podcast, Horror Pod. That's great. That's Horror, HOAR pod. You can look for it. It's the one with the red bush, pubic bush popping out of the panties on the thing. You know, it's easy to identify. I think that part got cut out because we had technical difficulties, but she was talking about her logo and what people thought. And it's like, it's great. Who doesn't like that? Everyone does. So go check that out. It was a really fun conversation. Her podcast is cool because Lacey's cool. And she was reminding me a lot in that episode. I was listening back. And that's where I don't usually listen to myself on other podcasts avidly. But she's so smart. I was listening for her. I'm like, all right, tell me the good stuff. I know what I'm going to say. And she's really connected to this body, like the body stuff as being like a tool and a medium for perceiving energy. And I think that gets lost on us so easily because we feel like we're in our body, we're localized around our head. Maybe we have some perception of like our auric field or just that we're a bunch of things put together, but that's kind of how we generally perceive ourselves. And we forget that our body is constantly communicating with us, all these different things. And that's cool. That's cool from an energetic standpoint. And so she was saying some really cool stuff. So go check that out if you like that. Uh, what else was there's something else I felt like I wanted to bring attention to. No, it wasn't the Dolphins laying a fucking doo-doo turd in Denver. Can we just blame it on the Denver mile high air? It's thin air up there. Good for field goal kickers, not good for Tua. I don't know. Sometimes you just I'm trying to approach this as though like I know the Dolphins are good. It's just imagine being in a traumatic relationship. Don't imagine that, but the Dolphins are very abusive for a sports fan to love. They're very abusive. But I think they've transcended. Brian Flores seems like he understands a lot of things from the Marcy Projects. That's cool. Anyway, they rated that was stupid. What are they doing? Okay. Anyway, past that. You can see this is how they get you in. This is the Dolphins, by the way. I think I said it in the last episode with Mikey and Steven. My biggest spiritual teacher. I used to be so emotionally affected by the outcome of Dolphins games, and objectively very dumb thing to do, to be like emotionally impacted to the point of detriment based on a sports team that ultimately you don't have a lot of control of in the main external reality world. I'm trying to move in the imagination realm where the Dolphins win the Super Bowl, because I'm very confident that happens in my lifetime. It's going to be great. But yeah, I used to get so emotionally invested. And then over time, I was like, is this worth it? Like, I was just observing myself do this. And as I'm like, no, it's not. And everyone told me, like, you shouldn't care. People telling me that shit didn't mean anything. Ultimately, I see that they were right. That's great. That's amazing. But you got to go through it yourself, just like everything in life. Isn't that cool? Don't think it's lonely. It's not lonely. It's actually pretty amazing that you get to go through it within your own experience. That's cool. And then also there's all the cool like duality stuff of like psychic and interfacing with other people, reflections of like the one thing that is all of us, but also like we get to phase in. Anyway, we'll get to that. It's going to be one of those types of episodes. I've also been microdosing a fair amount. I gotta say, it's pretty good. Acid and shrooms, sometimes together, but independently, respectively. They're good. Okay, here we go. Be on guard for if statements as they pertain to your imaginal acts. If is a subtle. Did I read pernicious? Jesus, what a douchebag. Who the fuck writes pernicious? Is a subtle and pernicious form of doubt. Who the fuck am I? Mark Twain over here? Pernicious. It just means, shitty. Kind of like devious. It's a doubt, right? If you say if, I'm going to have enough money if this happens. I'm going to be in that relationship if I can do that. If I can transcend that, then I'll be good. It sounds positive, right? You've identified something you want to transcend. If I can transcend that, if I can just figure out how to do it, I'm going to be in good shape. That's super subtle. You're moving closer to the wall. I use this analogy. I thought about it as a kid. You go to you're like 20 feet from a wall and you say you can move half as close to the wall, right? At first, you're going to feel like you're making tremendous strides towards the wall. You go, whoa, 10 feet, I'm half as close. But after a while, you're going to realize you're never going to touch the wall because there's always going to be that gap in between there. That's what if kind of does. So just watch. You don't have to do anything. I'm saying if I'm failing, I'm bad. Just like, oh, shit. I'm not feeling like I am that. Got it. Let's talk about, I heard also another good pod. That's what I wanted to mention. I remember Jessa's latest podcast, Voided Reality Check. Really good. Jessa and I had a nice text conversation the other day about our respective relationship lives. She's great. She's cool. And she mentioned me on the podcast and, what she viewed as my ability to manifest as kind of like a allowance, feminine, receptive type of energy thing. And I think it is that. I definitely think it is that. I don't want anyone to think that they don't have access to that. Now, if your felt internal sense is that you don't have that capacity, or there's some special aspect of your being that prevents you from accessing that, that is also a belief. The beauty is you always have access to new beliefs. That's just the law. When you understand this is all quantum and you can ping around any aspect of non-physical, non-local, time and space and everything outside of it, You have access to everything, including new beliefs, including beliefs that you always have access to new beliefs. It's like the genie wish. You ask for infinite wishes. That's always possible. If you go through the experience of forgetting that, that's fine. You're just playing hide and seek. When you remember that you're playing hide and seek, you can still play hide and seek. You just remember that this is a game. You may have more fun if you're a little kid and you think, oh, someone's really going to get me. But you still have fun playing hide and seek if you know it's a game. That's okay. You also can forget it's a game. You can go into the movie theater and forget you're watching a movie. Forget you're the producer, the writer, the director, the actor. Don't forget that. And how do we do this? With our consciousness, with our awareness. The scene that implies you are what you want to be, you have what you want. And when I say want, this is like, I feel like there's a whole train of thought that sometimes sneaks in. I'm guilty of it too. Where like, do I really like want that? Is that right to want that? You don't worry, you'll get to the bottom of it. Set your meta states: bliss, joy, gratitude, appreciation, unconditional love. Set those as your real imaginal acts. What would it look like if you were the person who lived in those states? What would people say to you? What would your surroundings be? Something that implies that has already happened. Condense that down to your imaginal act. All the other stuff will flow from there. It's like having a really pure, awesome body of water that flows down in a waterfall. You want to get that root source, that good, deep, nice, purified running water. That's what you want to get good. Wa-ta-ta-ta. Okay, that was the first one. Cool. What's this one? The good news is we're all dead and just phasing in and out of this reality as disembodied consciousness that we stitch together in a linear progression, which is pretty cool if you ask me. That's true. I read it and then respond to the tweet. That's cool. Yeah, we're dead, I'm pretty sure. Not in like a weird way. Don't freak out. Just as like dead, meaning that what we perceive as being alive isn't a lie. It's just kind of like a magic trick, and it's super cool and totally buy into it, and it's wonderful, except if you think that there's some external thing causing it to you. You will put yourself through a lot of things to really make sure you believe that, including collapsing timelines and realities that you may have thought that you wanted. And you could be like, well, this is just an elegant dance you do to accommodate the chaos of the world. All right, sure, cool. Totally get that argument. Why don't you go inside and internally reorganize your inner cosmos and your psyche and how you are and how you feel, and see if you still think that. That's all. See if you're an optimist or a nihilist or a pessimist. No judgment either way. My hunch is you will be like, oh, wow, this is great. Feel really good. Cool. That's nice that that's the answer to the complicated equation of life. You're supposed to feel good. You also can feel anything you want. Right? What did I just watch? Just Stranger Things. There's like Stranger Things, the latest season, by the way. It's okay. It's fine. Right? I'm not going to talk shit about it. But there's a scene where like one of the characters like is revisit. She's 11 and Elle's going through this thing and she sees this dude Billy and it's like dad is beating his mom. And I was like, Jesus Christ. Got very emotional. Went there. Felt that. Wow. It's cool that art and things like that can evoke that type of emotion in us, because that is also a way for us to transmute and process things. Art, energy healing, readings, all of these things really work. Right? Therapy, whatever you want to do, talking to friends, all of this shit works. Make sure you do that stuff. If you don't do that, your life will probably get pretty chaotic. If I don't exercise, not because I want to be in good shape, the moment I decided that I was in good shape, that I was the way I felt in my body, the way I wanted to feel, I always stay in that range now. And it's not a chore to exercise, and I don't have to watch what I eat. I'm just cool about it now. And that really had like a huge impact on the way I feel. And that really changes kind of your physical body, but also your mental kind of like etheric body. So just know you can always change your mind inside. Like that I say the same fucking thing all the time. It's cool. I keep saying it because I think people keep forgetting it. I see myself forget it at various times. And so when I do remember it and kind of getting in front of the microphone and talking about this stuff with friends for my whole life, before I had a podcast, before the microphone stuff, this is just something that I naturally felt like doing. Why wouldn't you share this information? I tested myself. When you start sharing this type of stuff, don't think there won't be pushback. Plenty of pushback. That's your own internal doubt being reflected back through other people. Don't say that to other people, by the way. What if you, it's like in Inception when you like draw attention to your subconscious mind and they start attacking. Don't do that shit. Just be cool, man. Be cool, my baby. Clean up your physical space. It does wonders. It really does. If you're living in a chaotic space, you will likely take that in either as feedback or it's a reflection of how you're feeling. And so clean up your shit. If you're the person who needs to hear that, great. I did it this week. I cleaned up my house. It feels so good. You gotta stay on top of it. Also, I do so many dishes. Holy shit, having kids, I only have them like 3 days a week. Holy shit, without a dishwasher, so many dishes. So many dishes. Oy, oy, oy. All right. Well, it's kind of fun. I'm enjoying it in a weird way. Looking up and holding your breath. Oh, yeah. Okay. So there's this guy, Raymond Grace. Denise put me on to him. He's very cool. Has a lot of fun things that he likes to say. He's a dowser. He's from West Virginia. He's pretty sweet. Or is he from Western Virginia? He has a technique that I like very much. I think there's various reasons it works, and we can get into that a little bit. But here's what you do. You write down on a physical piece of paper something that this is like the desire thing, right? Mitch Horowitz has a great way of saying this where you focus on something you really want. That's the first thing. That was the biggest catalyst in my life, is recognizing, being clear about what that is or those things are. Incredibly important. Write that down on a piece of paper and put it up high. Tape it to somewhere in your room where you have to look up at it. Okay. So you're going to look up at it and you're going to be able to read it. What you're going to do is you're going to look up at it and hold your breath for 17 seconds or more and just kind of read the statement, say it in your mind, stare at the statement. And it kind of embeds it in your subconscious because your mind starts to go into this like oxygen deprivated mode, flight or response. You're like synchronizing lizard brain with neocortex. I don't know if any of this shit is true, but what I do know is it sounds super plausible. There is something about looking up as well. It's like a state of awe. The theory, I think, from Raymond is that when you're a child, that's what you're doing, is you're looking up and receiving information. So there's something that it activates in the brain. Anyway, do this. I did it. I won't tell you my statement. It's working though. It's totally working. It's fun. Play around with shit like this. The 2 cups thing. I never did Did I do the 2 cups thing? I don't even remember. Dimension jumping, mirror jumping, all of this stuff. It's great. Don't let it get to the point where it defines how you have to do these things. Let them come naturally to you. That's a big thing that's coming on now. Let stuff come to you. That is a feminine energy thing. High priestess, sit down. Let it come to you. You don't have to be the magician up on stage twirling your wand all the time. It's cool, bro. If you want to, that's fine. That's great. I love to do that sometimes too. But also you can just sit and let shit come to you. Here's some Neville Goddard stuff. Self-confidence on your part and the thorough belief in the truth of your mental assertion are all that is needed to produce results. That's it. Self-confidence on your part. And through the belief in the truth of your mental assertion, he's calling it a mental assertion. I would say it's emotional, mental, this kind of spiritual connection are all that is needed to produce results. Self-confidence, though. This is how shit works, and you do it. Super important. Set that as your first imaginal act. If you're having trouble with other stuff, let's say you really need money. Start with self-confidence. Boom. Start right there. Trust me. Don't worry, you're not going to be one of these people who's so out of whack and like has a false sense of self-confidence. Jesus, that's not easy to say. You're fine. You're fine. I don't think anyone who listens to this podcast, truthfully, like has to worry about being a shitty person. And like we're all kind of shitty people, but like not in a bad way, but in a way that teaches us that like everyone's the same. Ultimately, that's important. Doesn't mean you're going to be a serial killer, but all of us have some aspect that we understand what it is like to be a serial killer, not in that we would do it, but we see it out in the world. We've seen many serial killers. We watch shows about the Mindhunter. It's a great show. That's us projecting into people's space. Art is a really good like 5D, 6D vehicle, which is why I think art and beauty are like huge things to aspire to. Beauty, the love of something, is, I think, a major propellant, if not the propellant that pushes us through time and space. It's like rocket fuel for us. Just the love of beauty. And beauty can be anything. There is a beauty in decay. There is a beauty in destruction. There's a beauty in everything. There's a beauty in sadness. There's a beauty in anything you can imagine. That's our propellant. So honor that. Do it. Imagination is the beginning of growth of all forms, and faith is the substance out of which they are formed. That's it. There's substance. This is your faith, your belief, your conviction. That's the main thing. And then your imagination kind of like shapes that, right? It shapes it and allows you to grow. It's like sculpting something with your, it's not just visualization. I think that's really important. It really does help because this world is like, a lower dimensional reality than things not in the physical. That's not a value judgment. We don't look at 2D things like cartoons and be like, you're a fucking stupid cartoon. You're not even real, dummy. That's what higher dimensional being. They're not like, it's not a value thing. It's just that's the dimension of consciousness that they're in. That's all. I had a thought there and I lost it. Probably some higher dimensional beings laughing at me. You and I have descended in consciousness to the blah, blah, blah. I'm going to say that over. You and I have descended in consciousness to the level where we now find ourselves and we see imperfection because we have descended. When we begin to ascend, while here in this 3-dimensional world, we find that we move in an entirely different environment. Okay. It's a lot of words, Neville, but it is kind of what I was just saying. We descend and ascend to the level of our consciousness, where we believe ourselves to be, to an ideal, to the pursuit of beauty and love. We ascend to that in our world. When we descend to like a state where we don't have access to that and we feel kind of burdened by people, relationships, circumstance, luck, the gods, fate, whatever, we're there. Right. But if we ascend while we're in this 3-dimensional world, right? If we move our consciousness, to me, I've been experiencing this. I don't know if anyone else has over the past month. It literally feels like sometimes in my mind, like it's going up vertically, like orientation wise from the top of my head. It feels like it's going up. It's like, oh, I'm in a lighter state of consciousness now. Interesting. And I'm able to stabilize it, which is very interesting to me because it hasn't always been like that. That's what it's like. You're ascending through the dimensions still while maintaining awareness in 3D. That's fucking cool. That's what we're doing. Very confident in that. We're going to do a whole episode on like mediumship and dead people because I think a lot of what this world is, I got this kind of on mini dose of mushrooms the other day, is like a training ground for energy beings to transmute or bridge gaps between what is perceived as living and what is perceived as dead across physical and astral planes. It sounds so crazy coming out of my mouth, but this is what it felt like was happening and people were learning. And that's what this world may be. And it is, right? In a lot of ways, but I think it's becoming more apparent that that's what some of us are doing. So that's cool. Many are inclined to blame others for their predicament. Man finds it so difficult to turn to himself, to his own consciousness, as to the only reality. Yeah. It's just so easy to blame other shit, right? Isn't it? I don't have any money. That's not my fault. Come on. Like, it's an unfair system. It's bullshit. It's not, I can't do anything. That person was a dick to me. What? They're just an asshole. That's all there is to it. Oh, well, it didn't work out because, there's that thing that happened. I mean, if those sound like familiar train of thoughts in your mind, just catch it and be like, yo, I don't want to eat this shit anymore. I don't want to feed myself this as part of my mental diet. But when you turn to yourself and you go, oh, schnibbity dibbities, I got to start thinking about this a little bit differently. Let's just see what happens if I do that. Oh, I'm the type of person where good things happen. I win a lot. I feel good. I'm able to provide for myself and others. Just like basic level shit. I feel happy. Live in a state of grace and abundance. Nothing you can do really can knock you out of that. Try to get into those things. Whatever you need to do. High magic, sex magic, turtle magic, what other type? All the magics. What's turtle magic? That sounds fun. I'm into that. Anyway, just we're good. Your only job is to have a good time and ride these fucking waves. That's it. That's it. Does that mean if you're feeling not good, you're doing something wrong? No, of course not. That would pretty much keep you in a perpetual state of feeling not good. Everyone goes through ebbs and flows. We do it for various reasons. When you are ready to move out of that state, truthfully, you will move out of that state. I promise you. But you have to really acknowledge and feel that and know that to be possible. And the only thing that can do that is you accepting that you're in control of that. That's it. And if you're not ready to, try to figure out what you're telling yourself. That's cool. There's so many things that we do. So many times I've been like, this is out of my control. Until I basically took responsibility and accountability. And this isn't spiritual bypass. This isn't looking at someone and be like, you're a victim of your circumstance. Go fix it yourself. It kind of is that, but it's not in a callous way. It's in a way like this is how consciousness and awareness works. So if you understand that, apply it. Just fuck around and try it. And that's why I try to be as accommodating as possible. And it's also why I talk about kind of the same few concepts phrased in different ways so consistently. And I try to weave it into shit that I'm actually interested in because that's just how I navigate this world. But it's kind of the whole thing. It's not the whole, like it encompasses everything else you're going to perceive because it is the prism in which you see this world and experience yourself through. So it's like you can't do it. You need that to do it here. I don't know how to describe it, but it is true. You are creating this. It's cool. And the more you can appreciate and handle that psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, the broader and more expansive your perspective will get. Life is really fucking good, no matter what. Just try to remember that when maybe things don't feel good and see if you can just rephrase that internally. Just try it. What's the worst case scenario? It works and you have to give up feeling bad. What's the real word? It doesn't work and you wasted what? Maybe cumulative in time, 5 minutes if you did it a few nights in a row, right before bed, 5 minutes. What else? I mean, some energy, I guess, as you're going to sleep. Please, come on, give me a fucking break. This world is your inner monologue projected outwards, right? It's what you believe to be true in this world. That's what comes out into the world. You perceive it as real, and then sometimes it informs your decisions. And then you miss the subtle action of you believing things. Beliefs can come from anywhere, and they do. And some of them are orchestrated and propagated, and not because they're nefarious or bad or evil. It has nothing to do with that. It's neutral. It's an energy that's being expressed through people, through systems, through all this stuff. And it's fine. But if you judge it and react to it, you're basically binding yourself to it. Basically, like, you've then fed that image and projection. And it's cool. That's you. How cool is that you have the ability to do that? But take responsibility for that. Take responsibility for that ability. Jesus. Well, do it. Because it is true. Like, that doesn't ever cease to be true. It is always operational. I think one of the reasons I initially shied away from the term manifestation is it implies that there's some schism between consciously perceiving or observing. I heard Jessica get into a whole perceiving, observing thing on the last episode. We'll see if I have thoughts about that. But whatever you're perceiving, I lost my train of thought. Should we talk about perceiving, observing? Observing to me feels like the witness consciousness, stepping outside of this personalized identity. That feels like observing. It feels like a impersonal stance of looking at the circumstances of who you are, your life. Perceiving feels from within the perspective of you. That is where I think we have a lot of leeway in terms of shaping our perception. And then the more you're able to attach that perception and observation together, so the detached, impersonal kind of unity consciousness viewpoint with the dualistic individual avatar perspective, you then really have like a cool fucking spaceship. It's like one of those fucking Star Wars things. It goes in all the directions. And you can navigate through time and space pretty effectively. That's how I think perception and observation kind of fit together. There are various practical applications of both of those. Observation is really useful if you find yourself getting too emotional, right? If you find you've been pulled so much into this world, Capricorn energy, devil energy, getting pulled so into it that you can't control yourself, taking a step back, going into observer role, witness role, that's pretty helpful. That can be not helpful if there's a situation you need to involve your heart and emotions into kind of more. It's not mind heart so much. It's just kind of this fusing of energies. This dichotomy that we use for terms, dark, light, good, bad, even subconscious, conscious, they're blurring together. That's what's happening. And when they blur together, they'll form some new thing. And seeing as we're still mainly in duality, that will probably have its own opposite generate. And it'll be interesting to see what that is over time in consciousness. But this is just what we're going through now. It's pretty cool. And I think essentially, if you recognize that you always have this power, it is always your internal felt decision of how you perceive and observe your reality. That's always within your control, and it's only as hard or as difficult as you imagine it to be. I know that sounds stupid, or like maybe it sounds like shortcutting. It's not shortcutting, and it'll be very satisfying. If that's the story you want to tell yourself, it's great. Like, take it from me. I like moving through various states. It's fun. I also like setting very firm, dedicated, loyal faith towards like joy, happiness, love, beauty. I really, really love those things. And that's how you do this. We want to know what the active mechanism for all this shit is. Talk about observation, perception, manifestation. It's just love. Fall in love with the best version of you. You don't need to know exactly what that looks like. Can you feel the best version of you? What does that feel like? Just for a second, if you can catch it, build a scene that implies that's what you are, it will happen. When you can catch it even without building a scene in like a technique type of way and sustain it, then you're really going places, because then you're walking this world kind of like eyes wide open, right? That's cool. It's in the toothy stuff. It's like a firefly as opposed to snails. It's pretty harsh. It's pretty going around calling people snails. Although in the Never-Ending Story, which I watched recently, at least the beginning part of it, there is that snail. It's a speed snail. It moves pretty quick. It's still a snail. I'm sure snails are great. It's fine. But you really are kind of like an illuminated being, in the sense, not that you're better than, or you have like something, different than other people. It's just like you're just walking around seeing a little bit better. You don't need glasses. Maybe everyone else needs glasses and they don't. And it's not everyone else. See, that's the trick here. When you really do embody this type of 5D, 6D, 7D Christ consciousness, you don't look at it like other people. If you start finding here's what happens. This is the one benefit, I think, now that the political thing is kind of tamping down, and Trump is like, yeah, of course he's going to leave. He's not a fucking dictator. Sorry, guys. You may not like him, but he's going to leave. This is, I lost my train of thought again. Fuck. Is that the third time this episode? It's, what it is. I called my shot again in the beginning. I said it was going to be a great episode. This is still a fantastic fucking episode. I did forget my train of thought 3 times. Pro level shit here. I didn't write stuff down. Got a lot of thoughts, a lot of energy going around. It'll come back to me. Political stuff, good that it's doing. What's it doing that's good? That's probably why I can't remember it. It's like, what is the political system doing? It did do good, though. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to run it back. It'll come back to me. You can write to me and tell me what the fuck I forgot in this episode. There has been a fair amount of, I think, phasing in and out of perspectives. And if that's something you're not comfortable with, that can feel disorienting at the very least, and potentially very jarring at worst. And jarring can feel like anxiety, tension. I'd call it does anyone else, when they get take mushrooms or psychedelics, that have a come up and they get real jitter and they feel like they have to do something but they don't know what it is? That's kind of that's been going and coming in waves for, I think, a lot of people, myself included. Primarily when I'm coming up on psychedelics, but it is an energy that I think is present, and we're in a gestation about to be birthed phase. I do feel that is true collectively. Um, I've accepted that, I'd say collectively. I could stubbornly be like, no, we've already arrived. And we have. Like, because time and space are just constructs we're moving ourselves through right now, like how we perceive it. But we have already arrived. Part of my, like, maybe annoying optimism about this shit is like, we did it. We already did. How do I know we did it? I proved it to myself. This doesn't mean I'm the center of all the universes. Everyone is the center of their universe. That's not a mistake. There's also a collective outside world that we totally need to honor. They do not negate each other. But really honoring yourself and the power you have and how that shapes this reality we perceive. I remember what it was. Okay, when you think, this is what people do in political situations when they think of someone else. They build up an imaginary character, or maybe a character in their life, in their imagination. They go, oh, this fucking guy, this fucking lady, they do this. He does this, is probably the type of people who does that. You don't catch what you're doing, but if you can slow it down, right? Slow it down and see what you're doing there. You just created an imaginary character. Now, that person probably exists somewhere. That's the trippy thing. Probably in this reality too. But you're tapping into it and then projecting and getting mad at it, thereby creating it. If when you're doing that, you can see that you're doing it and be like, oh, let me wheel that back. Let me take that one back right now. Just imagine that person. Sure, they're demonstrating that type of behavior. There probably are people like that. But I'm just going to imagine people kind of like, being good people. Even if there's disagreements, even if there's moral and ethical disagreements, there's still a way that the best kind of outcome happens. Not in a passive kind of defeatist type of way. That's super important. The more you can do that internally instead of descending to a level where people are just like always trying to fuck you, or like shit's going wrong, or people aren't good, see what evidence you get in your world. And a lot of those times beliefs like that like are not yours. They're never yours. They're like constructs that people who didn't understand reality epigenetically passed on, basically spiritually, karmically. They just didn't. It's cool. You don't get mad at someone who doesn't know something because they haven't learned it yet or weren't aware that they could do that. That's not cool. It's not the right approach. You don't get mad at a kid because they don't understand something they haven't been taught yet or forgot. It's ridiculous. So don't do that. Just be cool. How much of this episode is me just saying, just be cool? It is good advice, I gotta say. Last thing I'll leave you with here with the talking. Feel deserving. Jessa also mentioned this, and I think she did key in. I think she was going to use the word entitlement and try to like make it sound better. It's totally entitlement. It's feeling deserving. Why? Wait a second. Tell me why I shouldn't feel like I deserve everything. Tell me again. Why is that? No, just tell me why. And why should you feel like you don't deserve everything? What's the reason? Because you're not good enough? Because you did a bad thing? Because you're doing bad things? Because you're not that type of person? I mean, what? Just give me the reason. Just keep asking yourself that. Track back, who am I? That question forever. The Ramana Maharshi, the enlightened mystic thing. Keep tracking that one back. Where do you end up? What is that thing? What is the ultimate self? You're telling me that self isn't deserving of everything? Okay. Just give me an answer to what that is, why you shouldn't feel like you deserve everything. That's all. So just feel deserving. What is the reason you can't effortlessly, gracefully move through your fears and transcends your doubts, worries, and anxieties? What's the reason you can't do that again? Because that thing happened to you? Try the revision technique if you need that construct to help do it. Whatever. But you always have access and you're always deserving of being the best version of you. Doesn't cost you anything either. That's the beauty. Doesn't. You know, it does cost you something. My Patreon. Should put ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching signs. It's cool. Bitcoin's going up. Just join it for the fucking server. You can leave after a month if it's annoying to you. It's not. People love it. It's one of the best Patreons ever created in the history of Patreons. Maybe it hasn't shown itself to be that yet. No, it has. It's fucking great. We're doing readings. Twitch is getting going. YouTube's going. Live streams. Bonus episodes. Q&As twice a month. Just cool shit. The Discord for the Bitcoin and the crypto stuff is fucking fantastic. You get early access to music before it hits the streaming sites. Other fun stuff we're going to be doing. I'm trying not to say what those things are to not have to commit to something that I can't deliver, but feeling pretty good. Got my drum machine hooked up. There's a lot of good stuff. You can join that at patreon.com/synchronicity. I think I'm going to do some like radio shows there too with music behind me that we don't put up on the main feed because of copyright stuff. So maybe some like DJ stuff and talking and cards and smoking. Fun stuff like that. Go check that out. Readings are like, I block off sometimes. I'm just trying to gate my time appropriately. If you see them on Instagram, that's the best time to do them. Other than that, probably blocking off most of the spots for a little bit. Maybe we'll do the Christ consciousness readings again. Am I going to record them again? I guess I could do recorded ones. Should we do like half hour, 15-minute Christ consciousness reading? They're super intense. I know those were probably the most popular. Last year, did like fucking 45 readings the week of Christmas. It was so nuts. And they were hour long. They're not going to be an hour long this time. And I recorded them. There were astrology, there were tarot. It was pretty sweet. So maybe I will do those depending on how everything is going. But we may be bored and want to do shit like that. So we'll see. All right. That's it. I love you. Just hang in there. It's cool. Set your intention. Start making art again if you feel compelled. If you just want to play video games, just play video games. Can everyone imagine me getting a PS5? That's a very frustrating process that I believe I have transcended. So let's get me one of those. I'll stream. That's it. I'll see you next week. Until then, happy imagining.
Turn